Two teenagers with injury problems, a manager who warned everyone for 2 straight years, and a World Cup opener that's now hanging by a thread. For 2 decades, Spain never had a problem like this. But then came Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams, and the machine that built them started eating them alive. So, what did Luis de la Fuente actually warn about? And why, just weeks before the 2026 World Cup, did every single prediction he made come true at once? This is the story of how Spain burned its own jewels. Summer of 2024. Spain walked into the European Championship with a squad nobody had fully figured out yet. And they walked out of it with a trophy, 7 wins from 7, and 2 teenagers who had just rewritten what wing play was supposed to look like. Lamine Yamal turned 16 the day before the final. 16! He scored a goal against France in the semi-final that made grown men weep, and commentators lose their vocabulary. It was the kind of strike that doesn't come from a teenager. It comes from someone who's been playing this sport in their sleep since they could walk. On the other flank, Nico Williams did what Nico Williams does. He ran at people. He ran through people. He ran past people who had been playing professional football since he was in primary school. In the final, he opened the scoring against England with a finish so calm you'd think he was in a pre-season friendly. Spain beat England. Spain beat everyone. And suddenly the football world had a new obsession. 2 young wingers, both born to do this, both unstoppable, both unburdened by fear. Within days, the hype machine was at full tilt. Yamal was the next Messi, or the next Ronaldinho, or the next Neymar. Nico was Spain's answer to Vinicius, or Mbappe on his best day. Every outlet wanted a piece. Every brand wanted a photo. Every club wanted them, or wanted to keep them. And standing behind the podium, watching all of this unfold, was a 62-year-old man from La Rioja who had been quietly winning football matches with a group of players nobody had picked to win anything. Luis de la Fuente. He had a warning. Nobody wanted to hear it. Speed and power without control is useless. Before the final even kicked off, de la Fuente was already trying to slow the world down. He said something strange for a manager whose team had just scored 4 goals in 90 minutes. He said his young wingers needed to learn when not to run. Speed and power without control is useless. That was his line, repeated in multiple interviews across that summer. The message was simple. Yamal and Williams played at 100 miles an hour every second they were on the pitch. That was thrilling. That was terrifying. And according to the manager who had just won the whole tournament, it was also unsustainable. The warning wasn't tactical, it was physical. Bodies break. Young bodies break too. They just take a bit longer to show it. De la Fuente had spent his career working with Spain's youth sides. He'd seen a dozen kids get crushed by hype, by pressure, by a calendar that never let them breathe. Then came the second warning. This one was aimed at the media, de la Fuente pleaded. Begged, really. He told Spanish journalists to stop being self-destructive, protect the kid. He's 17, he's going to have bad games. Don't feed him to the dogs the first time he doesn't score. You can guess how that went. Every back page in Spain ran Yamal on the cover for 3 months. Every goal became legendary. Every off day became a scandal. The Spanish media, bless them, was constitutionally incapable of leaving him alone. De la Fuente said, and I'm quoting here, that Yamal had 15 years left in his career. We have to protect him. We have to think about the present and the future. The present means relying on him. The future means letting him have one. It was the kind of thing you say when you already know what's coming. Because de la Fuente, for all his politeness, understood something the rest of the football world was refusing to see. These kids were going to be overplayed. They were going to be overhyped. And eventually something was going to snap. It didn't take long. The 2024-25 season was supposed to be Yamal's coming out party. Barcelona was in transition. The stadium was being rebuilt. Hansi Flick had just arrived from Germany with a plan to make the club great again. And at the heart of it, a 17-year-old who was supposed to carry the attack. He played, and played, and played. La Liga, Champions League, Copa del Rey, international duty. The minutes piled up like parking tickets. And by October, he was already picking up knocks. Groin strain, 3 weeks out. De La Fuente stood in front of the media and said what managers always say. He's a kid. We have to rest him. We have to protect him. Everyone nodded. Nobody changed anything. Meanwhile, up in Bilbao, Nico Williams was dealing with his own private hell, pubalgia. It's a word that sounds clinical and almost comical, but anyone who's had it will tell you it's the kind of injury that doesn't go away. You rest it. It comes back. You rest it again. It comes back angrier. Nico managed it. He played through it. He missed matches. He came back. He missed more. Athletic Club did what Athletic Club always does, which is try to keep their star from burning out in service of a federation that didn't sign his paycheck. And here's where the tug of war got ugly, because De La Fuente had a line, not a suggestion, a line. If you can play for your club, you can play for us. That was his philosophy, stated out loud, repeated when challenged. If Barcelona was trotting Yamal out for 90 minutes on a Saturday, Spain would have him on a Tuesday. If Athletic Club was using Nico as a winger for 90, Spain would use him as a winger for 90. No negotiation, no gentle management. If you're fit enough for the club, you're fit enough for us. Hansi Flick did not love this. Flick had taken over a Barcelona side that was stitched together with tape and prayer, and Yamal was one of the few players who could single-handedly turn a match. Every time the kid came back from international duty with a fresh knock, Flick got a little quieter in public and a little louder in private. The spats became public. Barcelona would report an injury just after a Spain camp. De La Fuente would express shock. Shock. He had no idea. Nobody told him. How could he have known? Which of course was the problem. Everyone was protecting their own interests. Everyone was playing politics. And caught in the middle of all of it, 2 teenagers who just wanted to play football and were never going to say no. By 2025, the pattern was set. Yamal would play. He'd get hurt. He'd rest. He'd come back too soon. He'd play some more. Another knock. Another press conference. Another round of managers and federations blaming each other while the kid quietly iced his leg in a training room. The Nations League demanded appearances. World Cup qualifiers demanded appearances. Barcelona demanded appearances. Athletic Club demanded appearances. Sponsors demanded appearances. Everyone wanted a piece of these 2 wingers, and the pie wasn't getting any bigger. Spanish football has seen this movie before. Pedri played 73 matches in the 2020-21 season as a teenager. Everyone said he was made of different stuff. Then his body fell apart. He missed most of the following year. He was never quite the same player when he came back. Yamal, by the midpoint of the 2025-26 season, was on pace to break Pedri's usage. Minutes-wise, matches-wise, intensity-wise. And every single person in Spanish football knew it. De La Fuente did what he could. He'd sub Yamal off early in Nations League matches. He'd tell reporters, "He's 17, we have to rest him, the lad is tired." Then he'd pick him for the next camp and play him again, because the philosophy didn't change. If you can play, you play. And Yamal could always play, right up until he couldn't. Nico's situation got quieter. That's the word for it. Quiet. He'd disappear from squads for a month. He'd reappear. He'd play 70 minutes and vanish again. The Basque media, which is less frantic than the national press, started asking gentle questions. Where was he? What was going on? Why weren't the club or the federation being straight with anyone? Outlets ran headlines demanding explanations from the Athletic Club. Why was Nico, a crucial player, constantly being managed out of fixtures? Was the pubalgia worse than anyone was admitting? Was he going to make the World Cup at all? The answers, when they came, were vague. Precaution, tightness, recovery protocols, the kind of language clubs use when the truth is worse than the rumor. And all of this, every single creak in the machine, was happening in the run-up to the biggest tournament either of them would ever play in, the 2026 World Cup. The one everyone in Spain had circled on the calendar since the night they lifted the Euro trophy in Berlin. June 11th, 2026. Kickoff. The window was closing, and the two best wingers in Europe were running on fumes. April 22nd, 2026. Barcelona were playing a league match. Yamal was on the pitch because Yamal is always on the pitch. He sprinted for a ball, reached for it, and pulled up holding his left leg. Hamstring tear. Left side. Not a tweak, not a strain. A tear. The kind that shuts a season down. The kind that makes medical staff look at each other and say nothing. Within an hour, the Spanish sports press had lost its mind. Mundo Deportivo ran the alarm bells headline. Marca led with catastrophe. The word crisis appeared on every major football site in the country. Fabrizio Romano posted that Yamal should be fit for Spain's opener against Cape Verde on June 15th. The word should was doing a lot of heavy lifting. Because a hamstring tear in April, with a World Cup starting in June, is the kind of timeline that makes even optimistic doctors start hedging. You can rush a recovery. You can get the player on the plane. You cannot give them match rhythm. You cannot give them match fitness. You cannot give them the sharpness that took years of football to build and a single sprint to destroy. De La Fuente went on television. He said what De La Fuente says. The best news is that he has 15 years left with us. We have to think about the present and the future. The present means relying on him. The future means letting him have one. Remember that quote? Keep it in mind, because he'd said those exact words months earlier. The present and the future. The plea to protect the kid. The warning that nobody took seriously. And now, here he was, being asked whether his 18-year-old superstar would make the World Cup opener, forced to comfort a nation while quietly acknowledging that the exact thing he'd warned about for 2 straight years had, in fact, happened. And Nico. While the country was losing its mind over Yamal, Nico's situation slid quietly into the danger zone. Pubalgia doesn't resolve on a deadline. It doesn't care that the World Cup is in June. It hurts when it hurts. It eases when it eases. And right now, it was not easing. The Spanish press coined a new phrase, the Spain problem. Not a tactical problem, not a selection problem, a structural one. The country had overplayed its jewels. The federation and the clubs had, collectively, burned them out. And now, with the biggest tournament in a generation weeks away, they were staring at a winger pairing that might not be able to start a single match. The talk shows started naming replacements. Jeremy Pino, Ander Baranexia, a recalled Ferran Torres, Plan B, Plan C, Plan anything. For a squad that had spent 2 years being told they were destined to win the World Cup, it was a hell of a thing to wake up to. Go back to the quotes, all of them, line them up in order. Speed and power without control is useless. Summer 2024, before anyone was injured. Protect him, he's still a kid. Autumn 2024, when the hype was peaking. He has 15 years left. We must protect him. 2025, when the injuries had already started. And then, if you can play for your club, you can play for us. The same man, the same press conferences, the same calm voice, saying 2 things that couldn't both be true. Protect him. Use him. This is the part of the story that's hard to sit with. Because De La Fuente wasn't a villain. He wasn't lying. He genuinely believed both things. He wanted Yamal to have a long career. He also wanted to win trophies. He wanted Nico to rest. He also wanted to pick his strongest side. He begged the media to be responsible. He also benefited, politically and professionally, from the media loving his team. He saw the crash coming, and he kept driving. Not because he was reckless, because every single person around him was pressing the accelerator, and he was just one voice in the car. The clubs played the kids. The federation played the kids. The sponsors booked the kids. The media built them up and tore them down and built them up again. The kids themselves, 17 and 23 years old, did what teenagers and young men always do. They said yes to everything. Because that's what you do when the football world is telling you that you're the future. And when your manager stands in front of the nation and says speed and power without control is useless, you don't hear it. You hear the applause from the last match. You hear the next opponent's name. You hear the World Cup coming. You don't hear the warning until the warning has already come true. De La Fuente won 2 major tournaments with this group. He took Spain from a footnote to a favourite. He deserves more credit than the Spanish media has ever given him. And he also, in the quiet way of honest men, failed at the one thing he publicly said mattered most. He could not protect his best young player from the machine he was a part of. That's the tragedy. Not that De La Fuente didn't know. He knew. He said it out loud, repeatedly, in multiple languages, to anyone who would listen. He predicted this exact crisis, down to the specific player and the specific timeline, and he still watched it happen in slow motion. Which is maybe the most Spanish football thing imaginable. A country that conquered Europe with 2 teenagers, then spent 2 years grinding those teenagers down, then acted surprised when one of them tore apart on a random Tuesday in April. As of late April 2026, nothing is decided. Yamal might recover in time, he might not. He might make the plane, but not the starting 11. He might play and re-injure. Nobody knows. Nico Williams is in an even quieter place. His pubalgia is chronic. Chronic means it doesn't get better, it gets managed. And management, in the context of a World Cup, is not the same as being ready. De La Fuente will name his squad in the coming weeks. He'll take chances, he'll pray, he'll pick Yamal and Nico and hope the medical staff pulls off a miracle. Or he'll leave one of them home and spend the next decade being asked why. The Spanish fans will boo and cheer and debate and cry, because that's what Spanish fans do, and because they love these kids in the specific Spanish way, which is to adore them and then immediately demand more. And somewhere, quietly, there's a 64-year-old manager from La Rioja who told everyone exactly what was going to happen. He wasn't listened to, he wasn't heeded. He was polite about it. He kept showing up. He kept winning, actually, which made it easier to ignore him. If you want to understand what went wrong in Spain, don't focus on the injuries. Watch the press conferences. Every single warning is there, in plain Spanish, said by a man who knew. And if you want the full story of how Spain's golden generation got built and broken, check out the video on screen now. We'll see you in the next one.